On the Wings of an Angel by Danielle Ackley-McPhail. Can't say as I didn't reckon I was going mad. It wouldn't have surprised me if it was so. I already reckoned I was in hell. That's enough to turn anyone's mind. But first, I call myself Miss Sadie Angelina Carlyle, though I don't bother much with any name but the middle one anymore. Not since taking up residence at the Lucky Strike Saloon in Dead Dog, Montana, anyway. See, the proprietor, Mr. Clayton, he says men are happier pretending they're keeping company with an angel rather than a common whore. I do as I'm told, else Mr. Clayton might forget he likes having an angel below stairs, tempting and teasing the custom, rather than just another girl entertaining above stairs. Men don't pay near so much for common. They have to save up for an angel, even a fallen one, unless they hit a lucky strike. That ain't happened yet. Till then, I sing. Sadie, sun's setting. Quit wool gathering and get yourself into your rig before I find someone else as fits it. Lordy, but that black-hearted Clayton can bellow. I can't help but shudder at his bald-faced threat, though. That happens, and I might as well drop the name Angel, too. Ain't none of us out of reach of his temper. I do to remember that. And I reckon he's been giving me looks, making me wonder will I be below stairs much longer anyhow. Looks that make me think he's tired of waiting for a prospector with that big strike to come along. I've no doubt I've only been spared entertaining the custom, 'cause there ain't anybody come in able to pay the price Mr. Clayton has set on my innocence. I flinch at the thought and rush to do as I'm bid, my mind near gibbering half-formed pleas for deliverance, but not hardly expecting it'll ever come. I'm already wearing my white satin gown and matching slippers with the thick leather soles. Now for the rest. Quick-like, I beckon over Shelby, one of the above-stairs ladies, for some help, 'cause I'm plumb can't suit up all by myself. See, our Mr. Clayton, he's into mods and mechanicals. Show him something with gears, and I reckon he starts breathing like he's been with a $5 whore. There are bits of invention all over the saloon I can scarce make sense of. They're most nothing much but tinker's toys, like the little metal birds what can't fly, but sing purtier'n me, if and only ever just one song, and miniature carriages made for cook's son, moving by themselves on tiny puffs of steam. The bartender's flesh enough, but there ain't a bottle of liquor to be seen, nor broke, if in the custom gets rowdy. Drinks is portioned out by a clockwork contraption of gears and pipes that can take a dent and keep on pouring the next drink in just as precise a measure as the last. Then there's the player piano, what plays itself like any other, but ain't no crank involved, just lots of steam and valves and whatnot. It's an amazing thing of copper and brass instead of wood, with gold-plated keys, and not sounding no more tinny than any other upright I ever heard. But all that ain't nothing compared to my rig. I can't help but think about that with longing and loathing mixed, remembering when and how it came to be. There was a tinker come through town, an odd, dirt-smudged little man, what made me more nervous than an uncooped hen after dark. The first he scurried into the saloon and looked his fill at every one of us, we felt near stripped bare down to our very souls, though there weren't nothing to it that was lecherous or mean. More like Mr. Edward S. Curtis, what came through with his photography equipment once, on his way to visit the Blackfoot Injuns. He used to look just so at near everything, like he was searching for the perfect picture it would make. I swear if I didn't feel the tinker's gaze linger just the same on me, though I can't fathom why. I was a young'un yet at the time, and nothing special to catch the customer's eye. Like now, I sang from my place when I weren't cleaning. Was the tinker first called me angel, with a nervous-making gleam in his eye, like he saw more to me than I right knew was there, and him not even knowing my given name. That amused Mr. Clayton so much it stuck. Then that there tinker set to catch Mr. Clayton's attention with such contraptions as you can't never imagine, and I can scarce describe. The things that came out of his sack, my Lord, it was a sight. The two of 'em spent more'n a piece of time with their heads together, haggling. Hard to say who hoodwinked who, but both men walked away with a smarmy smile. The tinker stayed a spell after. He puttered around in the cellar until near all you heard of 4 hours was banging and the hiss of steam. But evenings, he ended up in the saloon pestering me, asking questions and staring me up and down, muttering, "Not yet," under his breath, like maybe I didn't quite match the picture in his head. The questions made me more nervous than the muttering. They was dangerous questions. What did I wish for? What would I rather be? I was too feared then to speak, but my heart, it was crying out to be free. There was nothing I wanted more than deliverance. The tinker just nodded and gave me a wink, like he heard what I ain't said, before disappearing again back down to the cellar. I wanted to believe, darn near convinced myself he could do anything, including save me. After seeing him tinker with one of the songbirds what always sang particularly sad, I felt my forehead for a fever when he closed up his tiny back and brushed a finger over it, which set it glittering and glowing like pixie dust. Then that little bird took wing, flying out the window, never again to be seen. It trilled a happy song as it escaped, a different song. That's when I had to wonder, was I going mad? And still, I took to hoping then, though ain't nothing ever come of it. Afore he left for good, that little man cornered me in the pantry while I was helping cook with supper. He stood there, hunched and taut, again staring me up and down all familiar like. "Don't you worry, for now you're safe here," he murmured, his head side-cocked and his eyes narrowed, like he was looking again for his own perfect picture. "But remember, when that's no longer so, angels were made to fly." His words left me a shiver in a way I declare I'd never felt afore or since. To this day I can hear him whispering that, and would swear on my dead mama's Bible, if I had it, that I sometimes still spy him in the shadows, watching, eyes narrowed just so, though I know he's gone. Quite mad, true, but I can't help but wishing that mayhap the tinker was right, and I'd have me a chance to fly away. Anyhow, by the time the tinker finally moved along, after considerable time spent in the cellar, the parlor had acquired something wondrous new. Even now, I can't help but hold my breath while Shelby unlocks my special cabinet. The thing is tall, clear up to the above-stairs ceiling, the whole front and sides folding back, with fancy painting everywhere on the inside, like you would imagine heaven to be, all but for what Mr. Clayton calls the pneumatic tube, a brass pipe running down the center, shiny as the day the tinker set it in place. My rig just hangs there in the middle of the air, like someone forgot to paint in the angel, excepting for its halo and wings. I ain't ever yet been tall enough for that halo to perch proper atop my head. Each time I see the angel, It dazzles me. So I's always near forget how much I dread to buckle the contraption on. Ain't got no choice, though. Never did. Mr. Clayton says an angel's gotta have wings if anybody's gonna believe she fell from heaven. And mayhap they do when I'm singing, if I can be forgiven the smallest bit of pride. Savin' for my voice, there's precious little about me that ain't common, or so my pa used to say. Course, given this rig here, and the presence of the above-stairs ladies, I'd be a mite surprised did the gents notice a thing about myself, no matter that I'm hovering in thin air above their heads, looking near the picture of angelic. Times like that, I can't help but remember the tinker's words. And that little metal songbird, my heart goes all tight each time I do. Oh, glory, just look at it. Wings made of genuine swan feathers brushed light-like with gold. Mr. Clayton's after calling it gilt, then laughing his full ass off like he said something funny, which, given the nature of his establishment, I'm mighty fond of those purty wings. The corset, though, that there's a pure torment to wear. I must stand just so the entire time if I'm to have enough air to breathe, let alone sing as I'm expected. I do imagine were not the whole thing latched on to the pneumatic tube, I could plumb fly away. I reckon I wish that were so something fierce. Right now, the only things protecting my virtue is my singing and my not quite generous curves. I'm afeard that won't be so for long, being I've had to dodge more'n a few grabbing hands of late. Before Mr. Clayton can bellow once more, I step up onto the platform making up the bottom of the cabinet, and though I mostly feel forsaken, I lift up a prayer to the God my mama once swore by. After all, in a manner, she'd been delivered, even if her passing had left me to bear Pa alone, if and only for a short spell before he foisted me off on Mr. Clayton. I step into the frame, careful of the many dangling straps and buckles, making sure my feet sit just so on the narrow brass plate they're meant to perch on. I shudder to recall the time they'd slip from that square. The breath was near squeezed out of me. I've learned to be particular since. My eyes close all on their own, and I draw deep and full till my lungs near want to burst, as Shelby cages me in that rig of iron ribbon, white leather, and polished brass. Otherwise there ain't no room to breathe once the contraption's buckled tight. Those looking on see nothing but purty. From the moment I'm buckled in till they set me free, I'm nigh in pain, forced to stand straight and still as Sunday service, else I scald my back on the gleaming brass pole behind me. It was a wonder I could ever sing a note, but derned if I don't put the nightingale to shame each and every night when I put on the angel and dangle there in heaven to give the custom a show. And that ain't no boast. I hear the clunk of the lever being pulled across the room, followed by the hiss of steam warming the ledge beneath my feet. There's the whir of shifting gears as the wings spread, and I feel just a bit giddy as I rise up in the air above the platform. Can't help but wonder, maybe this time I won't stop in the middle. Mayhap I'll be crushed against the ceiling, or mayhap I'll sure enough fly away. There ain't no holding back my giggle at that. But then the sound of the hiss changes, and my perch slows, then stops. I feel it then, a shiver down my spine, familiar-like, enough that I expect I'd see him, the tinker, if my eyes weren't shut. I imagine I hear that little songbird as well, and I let my eyes drift open to see did either of them really come back. But all that's there is the familiar side of the angel framed in the mirror behind the bar, only not quite the same as always. Just a tiny gasp escapes me, and I forget to look for what I'd expected. For the first time ever, that there halo's just behind my head, and the angel's staring back, all brown gold curls and creamy white skin, with a tiny waist and a bosom to put the above-stairs ladies to shame. She's wearing my face. But it ain't that what startles me. It were Mr. Clayton, holding up a walnut-sized nugget of gold with a shit-eaten grin on his face. Standing next to him was a grubby, overlarge miner, smelling rank even from here. No longer able to deny my days of being safe were done, I recoil, only to have fierce heat sear my back. I don't smell scorched satin or burnt flesh, as I'd expect. I smell a garden, like my mama used to have. And again, I hear that tiny metal burn. The burning's gone afore I even draw breath to cry out. And in the mirror, I swear that piping hot brass ain't at my back no more. A gasp rises from every throat in the room, and if I weren't so scared, I'd laugh as their eyes go wide. But I'm afraid to move, afraid to fall. Then something brushes my shoulders, sends them tingling, like they've been long asleep and only just waking up. I start to glitter. I shiver again, and a flush steals over me. Wisps of steam curl at my feet like soft white clouds, no longer over warm. Then, quiet by my ear, barely louder in a breath, I hear the tinker's sigh-like whisper, "Now, be free." I feel like I imagined that bird did, afraid to believe, afraid not to. My body shakes at the tinker's words, eager like tremors from head to toe. Mayhap I imagine it. Mayhap I truly am mad. But something sparks off my skin, rises up from my bones, and sets me aglow. I remember the songbird as I feel the sudden flex of wings at my back, the bunching of muscles I ain't ever used. I open my mouth, and out pours a terrible, wonderful, glorious sound. As the angel sings, the buckles fall away, and my iron cage rains to the sawdust-covered floor in pieces as gilded feathers lift me to the sky.